Welcome to this full audiobook, Stop Negative Thinking, How to Become Your Best Self. This isn't just another self-help talk. Here you'll get real practical steps to quiet self-doubt, shift your mindset, and take control of your life every single day. You'll learn how to catch destructive thoughts, turn setbacks into opportunities, build resilience, and live with clear purpose. Every idea you hear is meant to be applied immediately. Small actions that add up to big changes over time. You'll feel motivated, focused, and ready to take action, not just listen. Imagine waking up each day with clarity, confidence, and energy to tackle what matters most. Stick with this audiobook, follow the guidance step by step, and watch your thinking change. Don't forget to subscribe to stay connected and keep receiving powerful insights that help you grow, stay disciplined, and become the best version of yourself. Number 1. Catch, challenge, change thought patterns. Negative thinking is like a quiet storm that begins in the back of the mind. It starts small, a single doubt, a fleeting worry, but if left unchecked, it can grow into a flood that shapes how a person sees the world, themselves, and their potential. Most people don't realize that their thoughts are not facts. They are interpretations, filters, and habits formed over years of experience and conditioning. To stop negative thinking and become one's best self, one must master the art of catching, challenging, and changing thought patterns. This is not about pretending life is perfect or ignoring pain. It is about reclaiming control of the inner dialogue that defines every decision, every mood, and every outcome. The first step is awareness, catching the thought as it appears. Most of the time, negative thoughts move fast. They slip in quietly. I can't do this. I always fail. People don't like me. These thoughts often sound reasonable because they wear the disguise of truth. The mind repeats them often enough that they feel real. But awareness is like turning on the light in a dark room. The moment a thought is noticed, it begins to lose its power. By catching it, pausing long enough to recognize it, the individual creates space between stimulus and response. That small space is where change begins. Catching thoughts requires observation without judgment. It means watching the mind like a witness, seeing what it says, and labeling it for what it is, a thought, not a truth. When someone catches themselves thinking, "I'm not good enough," the most powerful thing they can do is pause and say internally, "That's a thought." This act separates identity from idea. It teaches the mind that not every inner voice deserves belief. Over time, this habit rewires awareness itself. The person becomes more conscious, less reactive, and more capable of directing attention where it matters most. Once the thought is caught, the next step is to challenge it. Challenging a thought is not about fighting it with anger or fear. It's about questioning its authority. Every negative pattern survives because it goes unexamined. The mind says, "I can't do this," and the person accepts it without evidence. The Stoics taught that reason is the mind's greatest weapon. When emotion clouds judgment, truth is lost. To challenge a thought is to invite reason back into the conversation. Ask questions. Is this absolutely true? What proof do I have? Have I succeeded before? Would I say this to a friend? The goal is not to replace one thought with another instantly, but to weaken the false certainty of negativity. Often negative thoughts come from fear, not truth. Fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty creates mental noise that disguises itself as logic. But most fears are stories about the future, not reflections of the present. When a person challenges a thought, they begin to see how much of their suffering is created by imagination. The mind paints worst-case scenarios, and the body reacts as if they are happening. Challenging those thoughts reclaims mental peace. It's an act of defiance against the illusion that everything bad that can happen will happen. The truth is rarely as dark as the mind predicts. After catching and challenging, the most transformative step is to change the pattern. Changing thought patterns is like reprogramming an internal language. It requires consistency, patience, and self-compassion. Every time an old negative script appears, it must be replaced with a new one, rooted in truth and possibility. If the old thought says, "I can't handle this," the new pattern might say, "I've handled difficult things before." If the old one says, "I'm not good enough," the new one could say, "I'm learning and growing every day." The replacement does not need to be blind optimism. It should be grounded realism that empowers rather than deceives. Change happens through repetition. The brain learns through consistency. Each time a negative thought is replaced with a more constructive one, neural pathways shift slightly. Over weeks and months, this builds new patterns of thought that become the mind's default. It's not magic, it's mental training. The same way muscles strengthen through resistance, the mind strengthens through redirection. At first, it feels unnatural to speak differently to oneself, but soon it becomes the new normal. The inner critic grows quieter, and the voice of reason and confidence becomes stronger. Practical application begins in daily awareness. Throughout the day, thoughts appear automatically. During work, while scrolling through messages, in moments of silence, they are always there. The task is not to stop thinking, but to choose which thoughts deserve energy. A helpful practice is journaling. At the end of each day, write down recurring negative thoughts and examine them. What triggered them? Were they based on facts or fears? What alternative perspective could have been taken? Over time, this written reflection trains the mind to identify patterns faster in real time. Another powerful exercise is the pause and replace technique. When a negative thought arises, pause for 3 deep breaths before responding or deciding. Use that short moment to replace the thought consciously. This method interrupts emotional impulses and creates a gap for wiser judgment. For instance, if someone thinks, "I'll never succeed at this project," pausing and reframing to, "This is a challenge, but I can learn through it," changes both the mindset and the outcome. The emotional tone shifts from defeat to determination. One of the greatest obstacles in changing thought patterns is emotional attachment. People often identify so strongly with their thoughts that questioning them feels like questioning themselves. But thoughts are not identity. They are experiences passing through awareness. The more detached one becomes from thoughts, the freer life feels. Detachment is not indifference. It is inner stability. It means being able to experience an emotion or idea without being controlled by it. The Stoics called this mastery of the mind. The world may not always be controllable, but one's perception always is. Another key insight is understanding the language the mind uses. Negative thoughts often use absolute words. Always, never, everyone, no one. These words are clues that the thought is distorted. Rarely is anything absolute in reality. Replacing absolutes with specifics makes thinking clearer and calmer. For example, "I always fail" can become, "I struggled with that last task, but I can improve." This small linguistic shift changes the emotional weight of the statement and invites growth rather than despair. The journey of catching, challenging, and changing thoughts is lifelong. Even the most disciplined minds experience doubt or fear. The difference lies in reaction. Successful people don't eliminate negative thoughts. They outgrow them. They recognize them as background noise, not guiding truth. They have trained themselves to pause before believing everything their mind says. That pause is power. It's the moment when self-awareness transforms into self-mastery. There will be days when old patterns resurface. The mind may replay past mistakes or imagine future failures. In those moments, compassion is essential. Harsh self-criticism only strengthens negativity. The goal is progress, not perfection. Every time a person catches a thought and redirects it, they strengthen their mental resilience. Over time, these small victories accumulate into lasting change. As this practice deepens, life itself begins to shift. Relationships improve because reactions become calmer. Work performance rises because focus replaces self-doubt. Inner peace grows because the mind is no longer at war with itself. The external world may still present challenges, but the internal response becomes steady and confident. This is the quiet power of mental discipline. It turns chaos into clarity. The process of catching, challenging, and changing thoughts is the foundation of emotional freedom. It teaches that happiness is not something to chase, but something to create through awareness. Each thought is a seed. The ones watered with attention grow into beliefs, and beliefs shape destiny. By choosing which thoughts to nurture, a person chooses the direction of their life. Every great transformation begins in the mind. To stop negative thinking is to reclaim authorship of one's story. It is a daily practice, built moment by moment, thought by thought. When the mind learns to question its own narratives, truth emerges. That truth brings strength, clarity, and peace, the qualities that define one's best self. The more consistently this is practiced, the more naturally it becomes a way of being. The mind, once an enemy, becomes an ally. Negative thoughts lose their grip, and life opens up with renewed possibility. Mastering thought patterns is not an act of denial. It is an act of courage. It means standing face to face with the mind's fears and rewriting them through awareness, discipline, and compassion. With each conscious correction, the person becomes freer, stronger, and more aligned with who they truly are. This is the essence of transformation, not an escape from negativity, but a conscious rise above it. Number 2, rewrite inner voice with compassion. Every person carries a voice inside their mind that speaks more than any external one ever could. It comments, criticizes, analyzes, and predicts. For many, this voice is not kind. It whispers harsh judgments, magnifies mistakes, and questions worth at every turn. It becomes so normal that people stop noticing how cruel it sounds. This inner voice shapes how a person feels, what they believe about themselves, and how much courage they show in the world. To become one's best self, the tone of that voice must change. The goal is not to silence it, but to rewrite it with compassion, patience, and truth. The way a person speaks to themselves determines their inner world. A gentle voice nurtures strength. A harsh one breeds shame and fear. Most people grow up hearing criticism more often than encouragement, so the mind internalizes that tone. Over time, it becomes a reflex. When a mistake happens, the voice says, "You always fail." When fear arises, it says, "You'll embarrass yourself again." These words echo louder than anyone else's opinion because they come from within. They shape identity. But the truth is that the inner voice is not fixed. It can be rewritten, retrained, and reshaped into one that uplifts rather than destroys. The first step toward rewriting the inner voice is noticing its language. Most people live unaware of the tone running through their thoughts. Paying attention to that inner dialogue reveals how often it uses words of blame and judgment. The voice might sound like a parent's disappointment, a teacher's scolding, or society's impossible expectations. Awareness exposes the inherited nature of that voice. It isn't original. It's a mix of influences, experiences, and fears that don't necessarily belong to the person hearing them. Recognizing this truth brings freedom. The voice is not destiny. It's a learned habit, and anything learned can be unlearned. Once awareness is established, the next step is to question the intention behind that voice. Harsh self-talk often hides under the illusion of motivation. Many people believe they need to criticize themselves to improve. They think being hard on themselves will push them to do better. Yet, research and wisdom alike reveal the opposite. Cruelty destroys confidence, while compassion builds resilience. A person who feels supported within can rise after failure. A person who feels attacked by their own mind retreats in fear. True growth comes from encouragement, not punishment. Rewriting the inner voice with compassion means transforming self-discipline from fear-based to love-based guidance. Compassion does not mean weakness or complacency. It means speaking truthfully, but kindly. Instead of saying, "You're such a failure," a compassionate voice says, "That didn't go as planned, but you can learn from it." This simple shift changes how the nervous system reacts. The body relaxes instead of tensing. The heart opens instead of closing. The mind becomes willing to try again. Every gentle response trains the brain to associate growth with safety rather than threat. This creates an inner environment where improvement feels possible, not painful. Rewriting the inner voice requires consistency. It's not a single act, but a daily practice. Each time a negative or judgmental thought appears, it must be replaced with a compassionate truth. When the voice says you're not smart enough, respond with, "You are still learning, and that's enough for today." When it says you should have done better, replace it with, "You did what you could with what you knew." Over time, these new responses become automatic. The brain begins to echo kindness more naturally. The more often compassion is practiced, the quieter the critic becomes. It helps to imagine the inner voice as a separate character, an old habit that has lost its purpose. Visualizing it this way allows for emotional distance. It can be observed, spoken to, and corrected. Picture it as a scared child or an overprotective guardian trying to prevent pain by predicting failure. When viewed through compassion, the voice's harshness starts to make sense. It was trying in its own misguided way to protect from disappointment. Understanding this softens the relationship with oneself. Instead of fighting the inner critic, one begins to teach it a new language of care and balance. Practical application of this idea begins in small moments. Start the day with conscious language. The first thoughts of the morning set the emotional tone for the hours ahead. Instead of "I'm already behind," try "I have time to do what matters most." Throughout the day, notice self-directed comments. When completing a task, acknowledge effort, not just results. Say, "I gave my best," instead of "I should have done more." This habit rewires focus toward progress rather than perfection. It cultivates gratitude for the process of becoming, not just the outcome. Writing can also be a powerful tool for transforming the inner voice. Keeping a journal that records the dialogue between the critic and the compassionate self allows awareness to deepen. Write down the harsh statement, then directly respond with kindness and reason. For example, critic, "You'll never succeed." Compassion, "Success is built through patience, and I'm willing to grow." Seeing these exchanges on paper helps to expose the irrational tone of self-criticism and gives the compassionate voice a stronger presence in the mind. Over time, this written dialogue becomes an internal one that happens naturally without effort. It's also essential to recognize that compassion includes accountability. Speaking kindly to oneself doesn't mean avoiding responsibility or ignoring mistakes. It means facing truth with balance. A compassionate voice says, "Yes, you made an error, and you can make it right." It focuses on solutions, not shame. It accepts imperfection as part of the human experience. In doing so, it builds integrity and humility rather than guilt and fear. A person who can forgive themselves can also grow faster because their energy is directed toward change, not regret. Compassion for oneself also involves listening to emotional needs without judgment. When exhaustion appears, the compassionate voice says, "You need rest," instead of "You're being lazy." When anxiety arises, it says it's okay to feel uncertain, instead of "You should be stronger." This internal kindness fosters emotional intelligence, the ability to respond to feelings wisely, rather than suppress them. Emotional awareness strengthens mental clarity and resilience. The more a person honors their emotions, the less control those emotions have over their actions. Another layer of this transformation involves body language and tone. The way a person speaks aloud often mirrors their inner dialogue. Changing physical expression can reinforce mental compassion. Standing tall, breathing deeply, and speaking gently to oneself out loud can reprogram emotional memory. The body learns safety through repetition, and that safety rewires thought patterns. The voice of compassion is not just mental, it's physical, emotional, and energetic. One of the most powerful realizations in this practice is that the inner voice sets the standard for every external relationship. The way someone treats themselves determines what they tolerate from others. When the internal dialogue is harsh, criticism from others feels like confirmation. When the internal dialogue is compassionate, outside negativity loses its influence. People who rewrite their inner voice begin to attract healthier dynamics because their energy changes. They radiate self-respect, and others respond to it naturally. The Stoic perspective aligns with this deeply. It teaches that what happens externally is beyond control, but the interpretation of it is always within. The inner voice is the interpreter. Compassion strengthens that interpretation by filtering events through understanding rather than self-punishment. Life will still bring challenges, but the difference lies in how the mind explains them. Instead of "This is proof I'm unworthy," the compassionate voice says, "This is another chance to practice strength." In that shift, suffering turns into growth, and pain becomes purpose. Rewriting the inner voice is not a destination but a lifelong practice of returning to kindness. It requires awareness when the mind slips into old habits and the willingness to begin again without judgment. Each correction, no matter how small, creates new mental grooves of empathy and understanding. Over time, this becomes a form of quiet power, an unshakable inner stability that no criticism or failure can destroy. The most beautiful outcome of this transformation is peace. When the inner voice speaks with compassion, the mind stops being a battlefield. It becomes a place of cooperation, guidance, and strength. A person no longer needs constant external validation because their inner dialogue offers steady support. This inner harmony translates into outer confidence and calm. Challenges still arise, but the response comes from wisdom, not fear. The compassionate voice is not something to create from nothing. It already exists beneath the noise of judgment. It's the voice that comforts others, the one that believes in second chances, the one that encourages friends to keep going. Rewriting the inner voice simply means turning that same kindness inward. When that happens, transformation becomes inevitable. Self-worth grows quietly, but powerfully. The mind, once an enemy, becomes a guide, and from that place of inner compassion, every other part of life begins to rise. Number 3. Turn setbacks into growth steps. Every person who strives for something meaningful eventually meets resistance. Life has a way of testing determination through failure, rejection, and unexpected detours. These experiences, though painful, are not punishments. They are invitations to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck lies not in what happens to them, but in how they respond to what happens. To turn setbacks into growth steps is to master the art of using pain as fuel, not proof of defeat. It is about seeing every fall as part of the climb, not the end of it. A setback can appear in many forms: a lost job, a broken relationship, a failed attempt, a missed chance. At first, it brings frustration, disappointment, and sometimes shame. The human instinct is to resist what hurts, to wish it away, or blame circumstances. Yet behind every struggle lies hidden instruction. Life teaches through contrast. Failure reveals what success demands. When something doesn't go as planned, it exposes blind spots, untested beliefs, and untapped potential. To grow, one must first see clearly, and setbacks have a unique way of sharpening that vision. The first step in transforming a setback into growth is acceptance. Denial traps energy in the past, replaying what-if scenarios that serve no purpose. Acceptance is not surrender. It is acknowledgement. It says, this happened, and now I must learn from it. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed peace comes from focusing only on what can be controlled. The past cannot be rewritten, but interpretation can. Once the mind accepts the moment as it is, emotional energy can shift from resistance to recovery. Acceptance opens the door to wisdom. The second step is perspective. Setbacks shrink or expand depending on how they are viewed. From a narrow angle, they appear catastrophic. From a wider one, they are merely chapters in a larger story. Perspective gives proportion to pain. A single failure does not define a lifetime, it defines a lesson. When seen as part of growth, even the hardest experiences reveal value. Perspective turns regret into reflection. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? The stronger question becomes, what is this trying to teach me? That shift transforms confusion into clarity. Once perspective is gained, the next step is to extract the lesson. Every setback carries information. A failed business might reveal the need for better planning. A broken trust might highlight boundaries that were ignored. A missed opportunity might expose the fear that held one back. Lessons are not gifts wrapped neatly. They are discovered through honest reflection. Writing down what went wrong and identifying what could be done differently turns pain into instruction. Growth is not automatic. It is intentional. One must choose to study failure as seriously as success. After learning from the experience, the next task is to act differently. Insight without action keeps a person stuck in cycles. To grow, the new understanding must be applied. If a plan failed, revise it with what has been learned. If a relationship ended, use the insight to build healthier connections next time. Each step forward, even if small, transforms a past setback into a current strength. Every time action follows awareness, the lesson becomes integrated into behavior. That is the moment when failure evolves into wisdom. Setbacks also have a way of revealing resilience that was unknown before. Many people discover their true strength only when life strips away comfort. Struggle forces creativity, adaptability, and endurance to surface. A person who has endured hardship often develops quiet confidence, not arrogance, but trust in their ability to rise again. That confidence cannot be taught in calm waters. It is earned in storms. Resilience is built not by avoiding pain, but by facing it with courage. The more often one rises after falling, the less frightening future setbacks become. It is also important to understand that growth from setbacks requires patience. Transformation does not happen instantly. The emotional recovery after disappointment takes time. The urge to rush through pain only deepens it. Real growth happens in reflection, rest, and renewal. During that time, discipline becomes the anchor. Daily habits, no matter how small, restore balance and momentum. Reading, exercise, journaling, or practicing gratitude can keep the mind grounded while it heals. Growth requires both stillness and movement, a balance between allowing and acting. One of the most practical approaches to turning setbacks into growth is to adopt the mindset of experimentation. In experiments, failure is data, not disaster. It provides direction for the next attempt. Life can be approached in the same way. Every setback offers feedback about what doesn't work. When this mindset is adopted, fear of failure diminishes because failure is no longer final. It becomes part of progress. Great innovators, athletes, and thinkers throughout history have shared this trait. They treated setbacks as steps in discovery, not proof of inadequacy. Emotional maturity grows through how one handles disappointment. It is easy to stay centered when things go well. The true test of character comes when everything falls apart. Maintaining composure under loss builds inner strength. When the mind remains steady in chaos, it signals mastery of self. Instead of reacting with anger or despair, responding with curiosity and calm transforms emotional energy into insight. Each controlled reaction refines discipline. Over time, this practice creates a stable foundation that cannot be shaken easily. Turning setbacks into growth also involves humility. Setbacks remind people that they are still students of life. Pride often resists lessons, but humility invites them. Accepting imperfection allows learning to flourish. A humble person asks for feedback, seeks guidance, and adapts quickly. They understand that progress is not about avoiding mistakes, but evolving through them. Humility turns pain into wisdom because it keeps the mind open. The moment one believes there is nothing left to learn, growth. Another essential aspect of this transformation is gratitude. Gratitude might seem unnatural during hardship, but it reorients focus toward what remains instead of what was lost. Every challenge that is survived adds depth to character. Every struggle faced builds empathy for others. Gratitude turns setbacks into reminders of what truly matters. It doesn't erase pain, but it adds perspective that prevents bitterness. A grateful heart recovers faster because it keeps the mind anchored in what is still possible. Setbacks also strengthen clarity of purpose. When something fails, it forces reevaluation. What truly matters, what is worth continuing, and what must be left behind. Sometimes setbacks redirect paths that were never aligned with one's deeper calling. A lost opportunity can lead to a better one that fits who a person is becoming. Growth is rarely comfortable because it often requires letting go of identities and plans that once felt secure. But what is lost in comfort is gained in authenticity. From a Stoic lens, every event can serve the development of virtue. Courage grows when facing loss. Patience strengthens in delay. Wisdom emerges from reflection. The Stoics taught that the obstacle becomes the path, that the very thing one resists can become the source of strength. When setbacks are viewed this way, nothing is wasted. Even suffering becomes meaningful. Every obstacle faced with dignity adds to the inner foundation that no external force can destroy. The process of turning setbacks into growth steps builds an unbreakable mindset. Each recovery strengthens confidence, not in the illusion of control, but in the ability to adapt. Life will always include uncertainty. Mastery lies in stability amidst it. Those who see failure as feedback keep moving. Those who see it as identity stop. Movement, even slow, keeps growth alive. The journey may not be smooth, but it will always move forward for those who keep learning. In time, the pain of setbacks transforms into quiet gratitude. Looking back, moments that once felt unbearable reveal their purpose. They tested patience, built strength, and clarified direction. What once seemed like loss becomes recognized as preparation. Every fall trained balance, every rejection refined focus, every failure built endurance. Growth is rarely visible in the moment. It is revealed in hindsight when the person realizes they are no longer who they were before. When setbacks are embraced as part of progress, life becomes a continuous process of evolution. No experience is wasted, no difficulty meaningless. Each challenge becomes a stepping stone toward deeper understanding and greater strength. The mind learns to meet adversity not with fear but with readiness. It says, "This will teach me something." And in that simple belief, growth begins again. Turning setbacks into growth steps is the practice of transforming adversity into wisdom through awareness, acceptance, and action. It is the choice to see every ending as the beginning of a stronger version of oneself. With time, this mindset becomes second nature, a quiet strength that turns pain into progress, failure into wisdom, and every setback into another step upward on the path to one's best self. Number 4. Practice daily gratitude for clarity. Gratitude is more than a polite expression or a social courtesy. It is a mental discipline that clears the fog of negativity and recenters the mind on what truly matters. It is the quiet art of noticing, the act of seeing abundance in the ordinary. In a world that constantly demands more success, more recognition, more possessions, gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what is already present. It does not deny ambition, rather it gives ambition direction. It grounds the restless pursuit of more in the steady realization of enough. Practicing daily gratitude is not a ritual of sentimentality. It is a method for achieving clarity, emotional stability, and mental strength. Clarity begins with perspective. When a person lives in constant comparison, the mind becomes clouded with dissatisfaction. It looks outward at what others have and inward at what it lacks. The result is confusion and self-doubt. Gratitude reverses this lens. It draws attention back to what is already within reach. The people, abilities, and moments that bring quiet joy. By appreciating what is constant, the mind finds stillness amid chaos. It learns to differentiate between what is essential and what is noise. This clarity becomes a compass for decision-making, reducing the endless pursuit of validation that often leads to burnout and unhappiness. The discipline of gratitude is not dependent on circumstances. Anyone can feel thankful when everything is going well, but true gratitude reveals its strength in difficulty. It is the ability to look at challenges and still find something valuable within them. A setback may expose a lesson. A loss may uncover the depth of love that existed. A delay may protect from an unseen danger. Gratitude does not romanticize pain. It reframes it. It reminds the mind that even in hardship, there is something left: hope, experience, resilience, or simply the breath that keeps life going. This perspective transforms suffering into wisdom and chaos into meaning. Daily gratitude begins with awareness. The modern mind is overstimulated, constantly pulled in multiple directions. Without stillness, it overlooks the blessings woven into ordinary life. Taking a few minutes each day to slow down and observe creates space for appreciation. The warmth of sunlight on the skin, the steady rhythm of breathing, the sound of laughter, the comfort of a meal. These simple things often go unnoticed, yet they are the foundation of peace. Awareness turns the invisible into visible. It shifts the focus from scarcity to sufficiency, allowing the heart to recognize abundance where the ungrateful eye sees none. One of the most powerful practices is writing down 3 things each day that evoke genuine gratitude. The act of writing ingrains awareness into memory. It trains the brain to seek positivity automatically. Over time, this becomes a reflex. The mind begins scanning for moments of appreciation throughout the day, not because it must, but because it wants to. This subtle shift transforms how life is experienced. What was once routine becomes meaningful. The smallest victories, a smile from a stranger, a moment of silence, the ability to try again become sources of quiet fulfillment. Gratitude also sharpens perception by simplifying thoughts. When the mind is cluttered with worry, gratitude filters out the unnecessary. It redirects attention from problems that cannot be solved immediately to the stability that remains. This clarity allows better focus, creativity, and emotional control. Many great thinkers and leaders practice gratitude not as sentiment, but as a mental reset, a way to maintain clear judgment under pressure. A grateful mind does not panic. It pauses, reflects, and finds stability and perspective. In this calm, solutions become visible that stress once concealed. The science behind gratitude confirms what ancient wisdom has always taught. Regularly acknowledging what one values rewires the brain toward optimism. Neural pathways associated with contentment grow stronger, while those tied to complaint weaken. Gratitude reshapes the emotional landscape, making positivity more natural and pessimism less dominant. The body responds as well. Stress levels drop, sleep improves, and energy rises. Gratitude is not merely a moral virtue, it is a biological advantage. It cultivates inner balance that radiates outward into every area of life. However, for gratitude to bring clarity, it must be honest. Forced gratitude, repeating empty affirmations without belief, creates dissonance instead of peace. True gratitude requires authenticity. It may not always sound cheerful, sometimes it's quiet acknowledgement in the midst of struggle. I'm grateful for this lesson, even though it hurts. This kind of honesty deepens the practice. It makes gratitude real, not performative. It teaches the mind to find light, even in shadow, without pretending the darkness doesn't exist. Gratitude also refines relationships. When people express genuine appreciation, connection deepens. Gratitude acknowledges effort, presence, and shared humanity. It reminds others that they matter, and in doing so, it strengthens bonds built on respect rather than expectation. In families, gratitude softens conflict. In workplaces, it builds cooperation. In friendships, it sustains trust. A person who practices gratitude daily becomes a source of calm influence. Their presence carries warmth because they see value in others without judgment. Gratitude turns communication into compassion and coexistence into harmony. Practicing gratitude daily also breaks the habit of complaint. Complaining narrows focus onto what's wrong and amplifies it. Gratitude does the opposite. It widens perception and dilutes negativity. When practiced long enough, it creates an inner filter that refuses to dwell on irritation or envy. Instead, it instinctively seeks balance. This does not mean ignoring injustice or difficulty, but responding to them with a grounded mind. Complaints react. Gratitude responds. One drains energy, the other replenishes it. By choosing gratitude repeatedly, the mind builds endurance against frustration and regains clarity faster after emotional storms. Another dimension of gratitude is humility. To be grateful is to recognize dependence, not weakness, but interconnectedness. Every success rests on unseen support. Mentors who guided, workers who built, nature that sustained, circumstances that aligned. Gratitude dismantles the illusion of self-sufficiency and replaces it with appreciation for the collective forces that make life possible. This humility brings clarity by reducing ego's grip. When the ego softens, judgment clears, and peace returns. Gratitude humbles without humiliating. It grounds ambition in awareness of shared existence. A practical exercise for deepening gratitude is reflection before sleep. Reviewing the day through a lens of appreciation calms the nervous system and resets the mind. The question to ask is not what went wrong, but what went right, however small. This habit rewires thought patterns before rest, allowing the subconscious mind to process positivity overnight. The next morning begins lighter because the previous day ended in thankfulness rather than worry. Small rituals like this build mental resilience quietly but powerfully. Gratitude also enhances clarity by detaching happiness from external achievement. Many chase success believing peace will follow, only to find emptiness in accomplishment. Gratitude reverses this order. It brings peace first, And from that peace, success grows natural. When the mind is content, it sees opportunities more clearly and acts without desperation. Clarity rooted in gratitude leads to decisions aligned with values, not vanity. The grateful person does not need everything to go right to feel fulfilled. They find fulfillment in simply being present for what is. There will be days when gratitude feels distant, when disappointment overshadows appreciation. On those days, practicing gratitude becomes even more essential. It becomes an act of courage to choose to see one good thing despite the weight of the bad. It might be something as simple as the chance to breathe or the strength to endure. Gratitude in darkness is the seed of hope. It does not erase pain, but it keeps the spirit from collapsing under it. That endurance becomes wisdom, and wisdom brings clarity no comfort ever could. Over time, the consistent practice of gratitude transforms perception permanently. The world appears different, not because it changes, but because the eyes viewing it do. Gratitude sharpens vision, making beauty more visible and fear less powerful. It clears away mental clutter, revealing what truly contributes to happiness: simplicity, purpose, and presence. A grateful mind stops chasing endless satisfaction because it already recognizes the wealth of the moment. That realization is freedom, the freedom to live fully, to love deeply, and to move through life with calm certainty. Gratitude, when practiced daily, becomes a steady flame that lights the path through confusion. It restores focus, strengthens perspective, and purifies intention. It teaches that clarity does not come from having more, but from appreciating what already exists. Each moment, each breath, each connection becomes a reminder that abundance was never lost. It was simply overlooked. Through gratitude, the fog of doubt lifts, and what remains is vision, a clear mind, a centered heart, and a life anchored in awareness and peace. Number 5. Visualize success before each day. Every day begins long before the alarm rings. The tone of a person's morning is shaped not by chance, but by the thoughts formed in the mind before the day even begins. Visualization is the practice of consciously directing that mental energy toward what one wishes to create, feel, and accomplish. It is not an act of fantasy, but one of preparation. To visualize success before each day is to train the mind to align with purpose before the world has a chance to distract it. It transforms the day from something that happens to you into something you intentionally shape. The human mind is a builder. Every image it holds repeatedly begins to influence behavior, emotion, and focus. When people imagine failure or difficulty, their actions unconsciously follow that pattern. When they imagine progress, their body and mind prepare for it. The brain cannot distinguish vividly imagined experience from real experience. Both activate similar neural pathways. This is why visualization has been used for centuries by warriors, athletes, thinkers, and leaders to rehearse victory in the mind, so that when the moment arrives, the body already knows how to move. Visualizing success is not about wishful thinking or pretending that life will unfold perfectly. It is about mental conditioning. It is about entering each day with a blueprint instead of walking blindly into uncertainty. Before the morning rush begins, a few quiet minutes spent in mental clarity can define the quality of everything that follows. Visualization plants direction into the subconscious, guiding decision-making throughout the day. When the mind already knows where it intends to go, distractions lose their power. The process begins with stillness. Before opening the phone or rushing into tasks, close the eyes and breathe deeply until thoughts settle. In this calm, the mind becomes receptive. The next step is to see the day ahead not as a list of obligations, but as a canvas of opportunity. Picture the key moments that matter, the conversations, the work, the challenges, and imagine handling each with confidence, patience, and skill. The goal is not perfection. It is composure. The image of yourself responding calmly under pressure, speaking clearly and staying grounded, begins to carve a pattern that the real self can follow naturally later. Visualization becomes more effective when it includes sensory detail. Imagine the sounds, the feelings, even the small gestures of your successful self. Hear your voice steady during an important meeting. Feel the quiet confidence in your posture as you take a deep breath before a decision. See the satisfaction of completing what you set out to do. The more vivid the image, the more powerful the result. The mind communicates through sensation. When success is felt as real before it happens, the body begins to act as if it already exists. The strength of this practice lies in emotional alignment. Visualization is not simply about imagining external achievements, but cultivating the inner state that produces them. Focus on feeling capable, focused and calm. Feel gratitude for the chance to act with purpose. These emotions, rehearsed intentionally, replace anxiety with direction. Over time, the mind associates the start of each day with steadiness rather than chaos. The morning becomes not a battle to survive, but a deliberate ritual of becoming. One powerful technique is to imagine the day as a story you are about to live. Picture yourself as both author and main character. Write the mental script before it unfolds, how you will respond when something goes wrong, how you will keep patience when tempted to rush, how you will stay disciplined when fatigue appears. By rehearsing these moments mentally, you are not predicting the future. You are preparing for it. When challenges arise, the mind recognizes the pattern and acts out the response it has already practiced. This is how preparation becomes power. Visualizing success each day also strengthens focus. Modern life scatters attention across endless distractions. Without intention, the mind reacts rather than creates. Visualization acts as a filter, prioritizing what truly matters. When you mentally see yourself completing the most meaningful tasks first, you naturally direct energy there. The clutter of less important worries fades, because the mind has already chosen its priorities. Clarity is not accidental. It is built through repeated focus on what deserves attention. Another important aspect of visualization is self-belief. Many people begin their days doubting themselves before they even take their first step. They mentally anticipate mistakes, rejection, or exhaustion, and in doing so, they strengthen those outcomes. Visualization interrupts this cycle by reinforcing the opposite image. When the mind consistently sees itself capable, resilient, and composed, self-doubt begins to weaken. This is not delusion, it is balance. The mind spends enough time imagining failure. Visualization simply trains it to imagine strength instead. It is helpful to pair visualization with specific goals. Abstract hope is fragile, clear direction is powerful. Before each day, choose one or two intentions, perhaps to speak with integrity, to remain calm during conflict, or to complete an important task with focus. Visualize these specific outcomes happening smoothly. Feel the satisfaction of following through. This process transforms vague desire into mental rehearsal, bridging the gap between intention and action. When the real moment comes, the effort feels easier because the mind has already walked the path. Visualization also enhances resilience. When difficulties arise, and they inevitably will, a person who is mentally prepared for composure does not break easily. They have already imagined themselves recovering from setbacks and continuing with strength. The mind has rehearsed flexibility. Visualization makes perseverance instinctive. Instead of freezing under stress, the person recalls the mental image of handling adversity with grace, and that memory guides real behavior. Every visualization becomes a quiet investment in future composure. To deepen the practice, incorporate reflection at the end of the day. Review what went well, what did not, and how your visualization influenced your actions. This strengthens feedback between thought and reality. The next morning's visualization can then be adjusted based on experience, making it more precise and personal. This cycle of visualizing, acting, and refining creates continuous improvement. It turns each day into both a rehearsal and a performance. There is also a spiritual element to visualization that transcends ambition. It connects a person with their deeper sense of purpose. When one visualizes success, it should not be limited to personal gain, but include how one wishes to show up for others, with kindness, patience, and integrity. The most powerful images are those aligned with values, not vanity. Success seen through the lens of contribution feels lighter and more fulfilling. Visualization, in this sense, becomes not self-centered but self-guided, a way to bring inner excellence into the outer world. Some may dismiss visualization as unrealistic, but its power lies in science and discipline, not fantasy. It is the deliberate shaping of neural expectation, the training of focus before circumstances demand it. A pilot visualizes every step of flight before takeoff. An athlete envisions perfect form before competition. The same principle applies to anyone seeking mastery in daily life. The mind, when guided clearly, leads the body with precision. Without direction, it drifts into chaos. Visualization restores control to consciousness. Practicing this daily does not require much time. 5 minutes is enough to shift the trajectory of an entire day. The consistency matters more than the duration. Over weeks, the cumulative effect becomes undeniable. Mornings feel calmer, challenges less intimidating, and progress more deliberate. The day no longer begins with rush or randomness, but with awareness and readiness. Success stops being accidental because the mind has been trained to recognize and act upon it. As the habit strengthens, visualization becomes a quiet source of inner confidence. It removes uncertainty by rehearsing possibility. The future feels less threatening because it has already been lived in the mind with strength and clarity. Even when the unexpected happens, the foundation of mental discipline remains steady. Visualization does not promise control over life, but it grants mastery over reaction, and in that mastery lies peace. Every day holds infinite directions, and visualization is the compass that ensures alignment with intention. It replaces passivity with purpose and confusion with clarity. When practiced consistently, it becomes a bridge between the unseen and the real, between thought and manifestation. Success is rarely an accident. It is the natural outcome of a mind that begins each day already prepared to live it with awareness, precision, and courage. Visualization turns that preparation into art, the daily creation of a self that acts not from chance, but from choice. Number 6, detach emotion, focus on action. The greatest strength a person can develop is the ability to act with clarity when emotions are loud. Every human being feels anger, fear, disappointment, and anxiety. But mastery lies in choosing not to be ruled by those feelings. To detach emotion and focus on action is not about suppressing what is felt. It is about observing emotions without letting them dictate behavior. The mind, when stirred by emotion, can easily lose direction. It begins to react impulsively, to judge hastily, and to act from confusion rather than wisdom. Detachment restores perspective. It allows a person to see clearly, think calmly, and act decisively, even in the middle of chaos. Emotions are signals, not commands. They provide information about what matters, but they do not define what must be done. When people mistake their emotional state for reality, they distort judgment. A stressful situation might seem catastrophic simply because the body's reaction amplifies it. A calm mind can look at the same event and find a solution. The discipline of detachment begins with awareness, recognizing that emotion is present, but remembering that action must come from reason. This awareness creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies freedom. Many struggle because they try to fight their emotions instead of managing them. Resistance strengthens what it tries to deny. The wiser approach is acknowledgement. When anger rises, notice it. When fear appears, breathe through it. Observe without judgment. The mind that can witness its own emotions without collapsing into them gains enormous strength. It learns that emotions, like waves, always pass. By staying still in the center, you act from stability rather than turbulence. This self-command does not make one cold or indifferent. It makes one effective. Every great decision in life requires clarity. Clarity cannot coexist with chaos. Emotion clouds vision because it narrows focus to immediate discomfort or desire. Detachment broadens that view, revealing the larger picture. When you separate feelings from facts, you see what truly matters. For example, if you are criticized, emotion may urge you to defend or attack. Detachment allows you to ask whether the criticism holds truth that could help you grow. It shifts energy from reaction to reflection. Over time, this habit transforms the way challenges are met. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that the only thing truly within one's control is how one chooses to respond. Events, other people's behavior, and external outcomes remain uncertain. The wise person focuses energy on what can be shaped, their thoughts, their actions, their character. To detach from emotion is to return attention to what is controllable. When something frustrating happens, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I do now that aligns with my values?" This shift moves the mind from victimhood to agency, from helplessness to strength. Detachment is a form of mental training. It begins with pausing. Before reacting, take a slow breath. This pause interrupts emotional momentum and gives reason a chance to enter. Next, examine the emotion. Identify its source. Is it fear of loss, need for approval, or desire for control? Naming the cause weakens its grip because awareness turns emotion into information rather than identity. Once identified, channel the energy into useful action. If anger arises from injustice, use it to work toward fairness. If fear warns of risk, use it to prepare better. Every emotion can serve purpose when filtered through reason. To focus on action means to prioritize movement over mood. Many people wait for the perfect emotional state before acting. They want to feel confident before speaking, motivated before starting, or calm before deciding. But emotions are unpredictable. Waiting for them to align wastes time. Discipline begins when you act regardless of how you feel. A professional does not depend on inspiration. They depend on consistency. When you commit to action first, emotion eventually follows. Confidence grows through doing, not through waiting to feel ready. This principle applies in every area of life: work, relationships, and personal growth. When a setback occurs, emotional reaction often brings paralysis or panic. The detached mind looks for the next logical step instead. It asks, what can be improved? What must be learned? What should be done first? Action becomes therapy. Doing something constructive releases trapped energy that emotion would otherwise consume. Movement replaces stagnation. The more one practices this, the faster emotional storms pass. Detachment also strengthens emotional intelligence. When you stop reacting impulsively, you begin to notice emotions in others with greater understanding. You can listen without personal offense, respond without defensiveness, and lead without ego. Calmness is contagious. It stabilizes groups and relationships. People trust those who remain composed when situations are uncertain. This composure is not natural for most. It is built through repetition, through thousands of small choices to remain grounded instead of reactive. Each choice reinforces the neural pathway of patience over panic. A common misunderstanding is that detachment means emotional numbness. True detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of control. It is the ability to experience emotion fully while choosing your response consciously. It means you can feel sadness without drowning in despair, or anger without losing integrity. It transforms emotion from master into messenger. When you detach, you don't disconnect from life. You connect more wisely, because you are no longer enslaved by fleeting moods. Training this habit requires daily practice. One effective exercise is reflection. At the end of each day, review situations that triggered strong emotion. Ask how you reacted and whether your actions aligned with your values. Imagine how you could have responded more calmly. This process rewires your mental habits. Each time you review and adjust, your ability to detach grows. Another method is to use breathing as an anchor during emotional intensity. A deep, steady breath resets the nervous system, signaling to the body that it is safe. Calm physiology leads to clear thought. Another practical step is to define principles before emotions arise. When you know your guiding values, honesty, patience, respect, persistence, you no longer have to decide them in the heat of emotion. They serve as internal rules that anchor behavior. When anger tempts you to lash out, remember your principle of respect. When fear urges you to quit, recall your value of persistence. Living by principles turns reaction into discipline. Detachment becomes not suppression but loyalty to your best self. Focus on action also means measuring progress by effort, not emotion. Some days motivation will be high, other days low. Neither should dictate whether you continue. The builder doesn't stop because the weather changes. They keep laying bricks. The same applies to personal growth. By separating emotional fluctuations from the task itself, consistency strengthens. You learn that you are capable of acting even when uninspired. That realization builds unshakable confidence. When life presents conflict, detachment provides fairness. Instead of responding from wounded pride, you can assess with logic. You no longer waste energy trying to prove yourself. You invest it in what truly matters. The less attention you give to emotional noise, the more capacity you have for meaningful work. This is not apathy, it is efficiency of spirit. Emotional reactivity scatters energy, calm focus gathers it. Over time, the difference between those who succeed and those who falter often comes down to who can stay composed under pressure. To detach from emotion does not mean avoiding passion or love. It means maintaining balance within them. You can care deeply without losing clarity. You can pursue goals intensely without being destroyed by failure. Detachment gives freedom to feel fully without fear of being consumed. It turns emotional experience into wisdom. Through this practice, life becomes steadier, decisions sharper, and the mind lighter. As this discipline matures, something remarkable happens. Peace no longer depends on circumstances. You stop expecting life to be calm in order to feel calm. The world may remain unpredictable, but your responses become steady. This inner stability becomes your greatest strength. It allows you to lead yourself through uncertainty with quiet confidence. You stop being tossed by waves because you have become the anchor. Ultimately, detaching emotion and focusing on action is a path to self-mastery. It transforms life from reaction to creation. The storms still come, but they no longer define you. What defines you is the discipline to pause, to see clearly, and to act rightly no matter how turbulent the moment feels. When emotion is no longer in control, wisdom takes its place, and every action becomes a deliberate step towards strength, clarity, and inner freedom. Number 7. Build resilience through small wins. Resilience is not born in moments of comfort or victory. It is forged in the quiet repetition of effort, the steady persistence that transforms ordinary days into extraordinary growth. Many people imagine resilience as an innate trait, a gift of endurance that some possess and others do not. But resilience is built, not bestowed. It is constructed from the daily choice to keep moving forward, no matter how small the step may seem. The most powerful foundation of strength comes not from rare bursts of courage, but from small, consistent wins that train the mind to trust itself again and again. Every achievement, no matter how modest, carries a message to the self. I can do this. When a person honors small progress, they reinforce belief in their own ability to adapt and overcome. The mind learns through evidence, not theory. Each completed task, each kept promise, each moment of follow-through becomes proof that you are capable of navigating difficulty. Resilience is not built through perfection. It is built through persistence. It is the result of meeting challenges in manageable portions until strength becomes habit. Small wins matter because they shape momentum. Large goals can feel overwhelming. They stretch so far ahead that the distance between where you are and where you want to be can paralyze action. But when the goal is broken into pieces, a few clear, achievable steps, the path becomes approachable. Finishing a single workout, writing a single page, or even choosing to rise when discouraged are victories that compound over time. Each small success feeds motivation for the next. Progress multiplies quietly, transforming effort into confidence. In psychology, this is known as the principle of behavioral momentum. Success breeds further action because achievement releases satisfaction in the brain, reinforcing the pattern of effort and reward. When you experience the gratification of completion, even in small doses, it becomes easier to take the next step. Resilience is not about ignoring failure, but about building enough emotional fuel through minor victories that setbacks no longer drain you completely. Every small win adds to a reserve of strength that carries you through larger challenges. The key is to redefine what counts as a win. Too often, people overlook small victories because they expect transformation to appear dramatic. They wait for the promotion, the breakthrough, or the recognition, while ignoring the quieter accomplishments that sustain their growth. Waking up early despite fatigue, choosing patience over frustration, completing an hour of focused work, all are victories of discipline and will. When acknowledged consistently, they shift identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone struggling to improve and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. Identity built on evidence becomes unshakable. Small wins also train perspective. They remind you that growth is rarely linear. Progress often comes in cycles: advancement, setback, recovery, and renewal. By recognizing even the smallest forward movement within these cycles, you maintain hope during difficult phases. The person who sees progress in minor steps stays engaged, while the one who demands perfection soon burns out. Resilience depends less on intensity and more on endurance. It is sustained by the ability to recognize that progress, however incremental, is still progress. One of the greatest barriers to resilience is the tendency to measure oneself against distant ideals. Comparison steals the satisfaction of growth. It convinces you that what you have done is insignificant simply because someone else seems further ahead. Yet resilience is personal. It cannot be measured by external standards, but only by how faithfully you continue your journey. When you learn to take pride in each small step, you detach from the noise of competition and focus on internal evolution. This self-directed focus protects your energy and sharpens your will. To cultivate resilience through small wins, begin by setting goals that can be completed daily. They should be clear, specific, and measurable, something you can finish without excuse. It could be a 10-minute meditation, writing 2 paragraphs, or walking a short distance each morning. The task is less important than the commitment. What matters is that you keep the promise to yourself. Over time, this act of self-consistency becomes a source of quiet power. You realize that discipline is not punishment, it is self-respect. The process of honoring small wins also changes the relationship with failure. When goals are broken down into smaller actions, setbacks lose their power to define you. A single misstep does not mean defeat. It simply becomes part of the larger rhythm of progress. This understanding prevents emotional collapse when things go wrong. Instead of giving up, you return to the smallest possible step that moves you forward again. This approach transforms resilience from an abstract quality into a practical strategy. It replaces despair with direction. Small wins develop not only emotional strength, but also cognitive endurance. When you repeatedly challenge yourself in modest ways, your brain becomes accustomed to problem solving under manageable stress. You train yourself to think clearly in moments of difficulty, to adapt, and to recover faster. Each success reinforces mental flexibility, the understanding that even when conditions change, you can still find a way to move ahead. This adaptability is the heart of resilience. It means you are not defeated by change, but reshaped by it. There is deep psychological satisfaction in completing something within reach. It gives structure to the day and meaning to effort. Life often feels overwhelming because it presents too many undefined challenges at once. By focusing on one actionable step, you bring order to chaos. Each finished action becomes a small declaration of control amid uncertainty. You begin to see that resilience is not a distant virtue, but something you practice each time you choose to continue despite fatigue or frustration. Over time, small wins compound into transformation. The daily act of doing what you can gradually expands your capacity for what once felt impossible. You build endurance through repetition, patience through process, and faith through progress. The person who once struggled to start eventually becomes the person who cannot stop growing. This shift is quiet but profound. It teaches that lasting strength is never built in moments of triumph, but in ordinary consistency when no one is watching. Resilience also grows through gratitude for progress. When you take time to notice what you've achieved, no matter how small, you reinforce a mindset of abundance rather than lack. The focus moves from what is missing to what is working. This shift generates optimism, which fuels perseverance. Gratitude amplifies motivation because it reminds you that effort produces meaning. When you appreciate small victories, you fall in love with the process itself, rather than just the outcome. Consistency is the invisible thread that ties all small wins together. Anyone can succeed once. Resilience belongs to those who continue. The greatest transformations often begin unnoticed, habits formed quietly, disciplines repeated faithfully, thoughts adjusted gradually. The reward comes not from sudden success, but from the slow strengthening of self-trust. When you keep showing up for yourself, even in small ways, life begins to respond in larger ways. It's important to remember that resilience does not mean resistance to emotion. It means recovering faster, adapting sooner, and learning continuously. Each small win builds that capacity. When the mind remembers that it has overcome before, it approaches new obstacles with less fear. The story you tell yourself changes from "I can't handle this" to "I've faced worse and grown stronger." Confidence built on experience cannot be shaken by temporary difficulty. The discipline of small wins also aligns with the wisdom of nature. Mountains are shaped by tiny movements over time. Rivers carve valleys through persistent flow. Growth in nature is rarely explosive. It is patient, continuous, and unstoppable. The same rhythm applies to personal development. When you commit to steady effort rather than dramatic leaps, your progress becomes sustainable. You stop burning out because your energy is guided by purpose, not pressure. As resilience strengthens, you begin to view challenges differently. What once felt threatening now feels like an invitation to grow. Obstacles lose their power to intimidate because you have proven, through countless small efforts, that you can endure. Each challenge becomes another opportunity to collect a new small win. Life stops being a series of battles and becomes a training ground for strength. In time, these small victories accumulate into something far greater than confidence. They create identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone who tries, but as someone who persists. You no longer rely on motivation, you rely on habit. You understand that real progress is earned through patience and practice. The quiet pride that comes from knowing you kept your word to yourself becomes unbreakable armor against discouragement. Resilience is not dramatic. It is built in small, unglamorous moments, rising after failure, choosing effort over excuses, valuing direction over speed. The power of small wins lies in their simplicity. They do not demand perfection, only commitment. And through that commitment, they build the mental and emotional muscle that no sudden success can match. Every small victory is a stone placed in the foundation of your strength. Over time, those stones form the unshakable ground upon which your best self stands, steady, patient, and resilient beyond measure. Number 8. Silence doubt using mindful breaths. Doubt often begins as a whisper, a quiet uncertainty that creeps into the corners of the mind when facing something unfamiliar or demanding. It questions your worth, your readiness, your direction. It grows louder the more attention it receives. The challenge is not to destroy doubt. It will always exist, but to silence its grip through presence. The most direct and reliable path back to presence is the breath. Mindful breathing cuts through mental noise like light through fog. It brings awareness from endless thought into immediate experience, grounding the body and quieting the storm of speculation that feeds insecurity. The breath is a bridge between body and mind. It connects thought and action, emotion and clarity. When doubt floods the mind, breathing often becomes shallow and hurried, mirroring inner tension. By consciously slowing the rhythm of inhalation and exhalation, you send a signal to the nervous system that you are safe. The body calms, the heart steadies, and thought begins to soften. In that space, perspective returns. Doubt thrives in confusion and panic, but it cannot survive in the stillness of full awareness. Breath is not merely a biological act. It is a tool of mastery. Ancient traditions understood this long before modern science confirmed it. They taught that one who controls their breath controls their state of being. Through mindful breathing, emotion transforms from chaos into rhythm, and thought becomes clearer, more deliberate. In the modern world where distraction and self-comparison create endless self-questioning, this ancient wisdom has become more necessary than ever. To breathe consciously is to reclaim ownership of the present moment, the only place where doubt loses power. The act itself is simple. Sit or stand in a posture that allows the chest to open. Breathe in through the nose, feeling the air travel deep into the abdomen. Hold gently for a brief pause, then release through the mouth in a slow, steady exhale. As you do, focus entirely on the movement of air, the rise and fall of the body, the rhythm of existence itself. With each cycle, thoughts may wander. Bring them back, again and again, to the sensation of breathing. This repetition trains the mind to return to focus whenever it drifts into fear or judgment. When practiced consistently, mindful breathing rewires response patterns. The moment doubt begins to surface, you learn to pause instead of spiral. You recognize that the stories doubt tells are temporary projections of the mind, not truths about your capability. The breath becomes an anchor, a reminder that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them. From this position of stillness, you can observe doubt without becoming its prisoner. You can act with clarity even when confidence wavers. The practice of silencing doubt through mindful breath is not about denying discomfort, but about transforming it. Doubt arises most fiercely before growth, before change, before new beginnings. It is the mind's attempt to protect itself from uncertainty. When you meet it with calm breath instead of panic, you teach the mind that uncertainty is not danger, it is opportunity. The nervous system learns that it can experience vulnerability without collapse. Over time, fear loses its ability to control decisions because it no longer triggers the same physiological alarm. Calm becomes your natural response to challenge. Each mindful breath is an act of self-communication. It says, I am here, I am capable, I am safe. These words need not be spoken aloud. They are felt in the rhythm of the breath itself. When you breathe with awareness, you reconnect with something deeper than thought, the instinct of life that has carried you through every challenge before. That instinct is stronger than any mental doubt. The breath reminds you that you have already survived every hard moment until now. You can trust yourself to continue. In moments of pressure, the mind tends to project into the future, imagining mistakes or failures that haven't happened. Mindful breathing pulls attention back to what exists now. This instant, this heartbeat, this breath. By doing so, it interrupts the mental cycle that fuels anxiety. You can only act effectively in the present, and the breath is always here to return you there. Each inhalation resets focus. Each exhalation releases unnecessary tension. What remains is clarity, simple, grounded, and breathing mindfully also strengthens self-discipline. It trains you to remain composed under stress. Instead of reacting impulsively, you learn to pause, breathe, and then choose the next action consciously. That small moment of pause changes everything. It gives reason a chance to enter before emotion takes over. In this way, mindful breathing becomes a daily rehearsal for calmness in the face of difficulty. The more you practice it in quiet moments, the easier it becomes to use it when life intensifies. Science supports what philosophy has long taught. Slow, intentional breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing cortisol levels and lowering heart rate. It enhances focus and emotional stability. Yet beyond science lies something subtler, a deep sense of trust in life. Each breath is proof of renewal, the constant exchange of what no longer serves for what sustains. Every exhale carries away doubt. Every inhale draws in possibility. Breathing becomes a ritual of letting go and beginning again. Mindful breathing does not require silence or isolation. It can be practiced anywhere, during work, before speaking, or while walking. The key is awareness. Even one conscious breath amid chaos can shift perception. In the middle of a conflict, when words sharpen and emotions rise, pausing for a breath can prevent regret. In moments of indecision, a few calm breaths can clarify priorities. The breath does not fix problems. It strengthens the mind to face them with wisdom instead of panic. Over time, the habit of mindful breathing cultivates inner stability. You begin to notice that doubt no longer dictates action as it once did. It may still appear, but it passes more quickly. You recognize it as noise, not narrative. When challenges come, you meet them with the same steady breath that carried you through before. You stop fearing your own uncertainty and start trusting your capacity to navigate through it. This is resilience born of presence, a quiet, unshakable confidence that grows from within. The simplicity of breath holds profound lessons about control. You cannot force the world to move as you wish, but you can always control the rhythm of your breathing. This small act of control reminds you that power begins inward. By mastering the smallest movement, you prepare yourself to handle the largest ones. Breath teaches patience, consistency, and surrender. It is the most accessible form of self-mastery, always available, always faithful. Doubt feeds on resistance. When you try to argue with it, it grows stronger. But when you acknowledge it, breathe through it, and let it pass, it loses substance. It becomes just another thought, impermanent and harmless. Through breath, you learn not to chase thoughts or fight them, but to witness them with serenity. This witnessing transforms uncertainty into understanding and fear into curiosity. The mind settles, and truth becomes clearer. In time, breathing mindfully turns into more than a practice. It becomes a way of living. You begin to move through the world with measured rhythm, aware of your responses, deliberate in your choices. Challenges no longer shock you because your center remains intact. You realize that peace was never something to find but something to return to, again and again through each conscious breath. Each day offers countless opportunities to practice. Before speaking, breathe. Before reacting, breathe. Before deciding, breathe. In that single pause lies the difference between impulsive doubt and deliberate wisdom. Over days and months, those small pauses accumulate, shaping a mind that no longer trembles at uncertainty but stands still enough to see clearly through it. The breath becomes both a shield and a guide, protecting your composure while pointing you back toward your inner strength. There will still be moments when doubt returns fiercely, as it always does before something important. When that happens, remember that the power to quiet it has been within you all along. Return to the rhythm of life itself, the breath that has carried you through every challenge, every change, every moment of fear. With each mindful inhale, you reclaim presence. With each slow exhale, you release noise. Silence spreads, not from the absence of thought, but from the presence of awareness. In that silence, doubt dissolves, leaving only steadiness, the calm knowing that you are enough, that you can move forward, and that peace is always one breath away. Number 9. Surround yourself with uplifting energy. The people, environments, and influences that surround a person shape more than thoughts. They shape the mind, mood, and ultimately, the trajectory of life. Energy is contagious. Just as a flame can ignite another, the mental and emotional vibrations around you can lift or weigh down your spirit. Surrounding yourself with uplifting energy is not a luxury. It is a necessity for personal growth, focus, and resilience. It is the conscious practice of curating the spaces, relationships, and media that feed strength instead of fear, hope instead of despair, clarity instead of confusion. Uplifting energy begins with people. The company one keeps profoundly influences thought patterns and emotional habits. Optimism, determination, and creativity can spread through conversation as readily as pessimism, criticism, and doubt. Choosing to engage with those who inspire, challenge positively, and elevate perspective creates a supportive ecosystem for growth. These are individuals who celebrate progress without envy, provide guidance without judgment, and model integrity through action. Their presence serves as a constant reminder of what is possible when the mind and heart are aligned toward purpose. Equally important is the recognition of energy that drains rather than elevates. Negative influences do not need to be dramatic. Subtle cynicism, habitual complaining, and constant distraction are just as destructive. When surrounded by these forces, the mind absorbs doubt and uncertainty unconsciously. To protect mental clarity, one must set boundaries. This does not mean cutting off all contact or becoming isolated. It means consciously limiting exposure to conversations, environments, and media that sap motivation and replace them with inputs that cultivate focus, gratitude, and courage. Energy is not only human, it is environmental. Spaces carry emotional and mental weight. A cluttered, chaotic room fosters scattered thought. A dark, noisy workspace invites tension. Conversely, spaces that are orderly, bright, and thoughtfully arranged promote calm, concentration, and creativity. Surrounding oneself with uplifting energy includes creating environments that signal clarity and possibility. Natural light, clean surfaces, inspiring images, and subtle reminders of purpose can shift perception. The external landscape subtly trains the mind to align with constructive action rather than distraction. Media consumption plays a critical role as well. The constant barrage of news, social media, and entertainment can either nourish or poison thought. Uplifting energy requires curating media that aligns with growth, learning, and inspiration. Listening to stories of resilience, reading works that expand understanding, and engaging with content that encourages reflections, strengthens mental resilience. Conversely, endless consumption of negativity, fear, and judgment builds internal chaos. Energy flows both ways. What you feed your mind becomes the energy it emits. Uplifting energy also involves self-generated influence. A mind attuned to positivity radiates it outward. Practices like gratitude, visualization, and mindful reflection build internal energy that elevates surroundings. The more consciously you cultivate composure, hope, and determination within, the more naturally you attract similar vibrations externally. The internal state acts as a magnet. People and situations are drawn to it. Strength is both internal and relational. Your energy can transform the spaces and interactions around you as much as it shapes your own focus and persistence. Intentional engagement is key. Uplifting energy does not appear by chance. It is cultivated through deliberate choices. Begin by evaluating daily interactions. Who leaves you inspired, calm, and clear? Who leaves you depleted, frustrated, or anxious? Prioritize the former without guilt. Seek mentors, peers, and collaborators who challenge constructively. Engage in conversations that elevate thought instead of fueling distraction or conflict. Even brief interactions with the right individuals can shift mood, spark creativity, and reinforce confidence. These moments accumulate, creating a protective buffer against negativity. Physical movement and activity contribute significantly to the energy one radiates and absorbs. Exercise, walking in nature, or any intentional movement produces endorphins and a sense of vitality. Being around others who embrace activity, health, and well-being creates a cycle of positive reinforcement. Shared energy in these contexts lifts both body and mind. Environments that support vitality, whether through movement, sound, or atmosphere, become anchors for productivity and optimism. Energy is not just felt, it is embodied, and embodied energy influences perception, decision-making, and action. Uplifting energy extends to language and thought patterns. Words carry vibration, whether spoken internally or externally. Positive language fosters constructive action, self-confidence, and resilience. Phrases of gratitude, affirmation, and encouragement strengthen both the speaker and listener. Surrounding yourself with uplifting energy means curating dialogue and internal monologue to support progress. Every word repeated inside the mind or in conversation either reinforces limitation or expands potential. Conscious attention to language becomes a subtle yet profound tool for cultivating clarity, motivation, and courage. It is important to recognize that uplifting energy is not superficial cheerfulness. It is grounded, deliberate, and anchored in reality. It does not ignore difficulty or pain. It frames challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats. Individuals and environments that embody this energy do not promise constant pleasure, but model perseverance, composure, and insight. They provide a template for handling life with integrity and clarity, demonstrating that energy is something consciously generated, managed, and protected. Consistency and exposure is critical. Just as a single uplifting conversation cannot transform a week of doubt, intermittent positive input cannot build lasting strength. Surrounding yourself with constructive energy requires habitual practice. Seek out inspiration daily through connection, reading, reflection, or nature. Repeated exposure trains the mind to notice opportunity, to anticipate success, and to resist the pull of negativity. Habits of energy intake determine the baseline from which emotion, thought, and action emerge. Over time, this baseline solidifies into resilience, focus, and unwavering motivation. The energy of others also teaches lessons about emotional balance. Observing those who maintain composure, optimism, and integrity under stress provides a template for self-regulation. The way people respond in difficult situations communicates as powerfully as words or instruction. Surrounding yourself with such energy allows observation, learning, and internalization of behaviors that reinforce constructive habits. It becomes a silent mentorship, an indirect but profoundly effective guide toward personal mastery. Every decision in energy curation reinforces identity, choosing to spend time with individuals who inspire, to inhabit spaces that elevate, and to consume media that informs and uplifts, signals to the subconscious what matters. Your mind begins to expect constructive input, your focus sharpens, and your emotional resilience grows. Conversely, repeated exposure to toxicity primes the brain for reactivity, discouragement, and indecision. Surrounding yourself with uplifting energy is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your mental and emotional resources are valuable and worthy of protection. Energy also influences creative potential. Environments and relationships that promote curiosity, encouragement, and exploration stimulate the mind to generate solutions, ideas, and innovation. Negative energy constricts thought, discourages risk-taking, and fosters hesitation. When a person surrounds themselves with those who uplift, each interaction becomes a spark. Thoughts expand, confidence strengthens, and clarity emerges naturally. Uplifting energy amplifies potential because it aligns the mind with possibility rather than limitation. To cultivate this consistently, create intentional routines. Begin each day with exposure to energy that inspires. Listen to a motivating story, read a passage of wisdom, or connect with someone who elevates perspective. Monitor interactions throughout the day, disengaging when energy becomes draining, and returning to environments that support clarity and focus. Reflect each evening on the sources that energized versus depleted you, and adjust accordingly. Over time, this practice shapes a self-sustaining ecosystem of positivity. The long-term effect is profound. As the mind becomes accustomed to uplifting energy, patterns of doubt, hesitation, and fear lose dominance. Optimism becomes the baseline, not reactionary. The body responds to constructive input with vitality. The mind processes challenges with clarity. The network of people, spaces, and habits that surround you becomes a matrix of support, reinforcing courage, motivation, and insight. Energy that once felt external becomes internalized, a constant source of strength, stability, and direction. Ultimately, surrounding yourself with uplifting energy is a deliberate act of stewardship over your inner world. Life will always present noise, criticism, and challenges. It is impossible to remove all negativity from existence, but by curating influences, cultivating awareness, and engaging in environments that elevate rather than diminish, you create a protective force field around thought, action, and emotion. This energy fuels resilience, inspires consistent effort, and aligns focus with purpose. Through conscious attention to what you allow into your mind and space, you harness the greatest resource of all, the power to shape your experience, your growth, and your life. Number 10. Create purpose. Live with intention. Life gains meaning when each action is guided by purpose, and the mind is directed by intention. Purpose is not a vague hope or a fleeting desire. It is a clear sense of direction that informs decisions, prioritizes effort, and anchors resilience in the face of adversity. Living with intention is the active application of that purpose in every thought, word, and deed. Together, purpose and intention transform existence from a series of random events into a deliberate path toward growth, fulfillment, and mastery of self. Purpose emerges from clarity of values. To live intentionally, it is essential to understand what matters most, what principles are non-negotiable, and which goals align with long-term vision. When decisions are grounded in core values, action becomes easier and more confident because each choice is measured against a stable internal compass rather than fleeting impulses. Purpose acts as a filter, allowing you to discern what deserves energy and what distracts. Without this clarity, life drifts under the influence of external pressures, leaving potential unfulfilled and energy scattered. Intention is the practical application of purpose. It requires conscious choice at every moment. Every action, no matter how small, either aligns with your purpose or diverts from it. Waking up, preparing for the day, interacting with others, managing tasks, all are opportunities to act intentionally. When a morning routine is designed with clear objectives, the day is no longer dictated by chance or habit. When communication is intentional, words carry impact rather than filling silence. Each deliberate act reinforces identity, strengthens focus, and deepens engagement with life itself. To create purpose, reflection is critical. Time must be set aside to ask profound questions. What do I want my life to stand for? How do I wish to be remembered? Which pursuits provide lasting satisfaction rather than temporary gratification? Reflection allows the mind to sift through noise and uncover what resonates at a deep level. Once uncovered, purpose is not an abstract ideal. It becomes actionable. Goals, priorities, and daily choices are then infused with meaning, making even routine activities a vehicle for growth and fulfillment. Living with intention requires awareness in the present moment. Life is filled with distractions, from technology to social pressures, which can fragment attention and dilute energy. Intentional living demands active engagement with each task. Focus fully on the conversation you are having, the work you are performing, the learning you are pursuing. Each moment treated with purpose compounds over time, producing significant results. Small intentional choices accumulate into habits, and habits form character. Over time, living intentionally becomes second nature, guiding actions automatically toward meaningful outcomes. Purpose and intention also provide resilience during challenges. Obstacles lose their capacity to derail when they are contextualized within a larger vision. When setbacks occur, the person guided by purpose does not flounder in frustration. Instead, they ask, how does this serve growth? What can be learned? Intention transforms difficulty into a tool for mastery. Every action becomes a step forward, even when circumstances are imperfect. The mind trained to operate with purpose views adversity as a training ground for skill, patience, and wisdom rather than a reason for despair. The process of integrating purpose into life requires clarity of priorities. Time and energy are finite resources. Without prioritization, effort dissipates. By identifying the actions that have the greatest alignment with values and long-term goals, one ensures that energy is invested wisely. This does not imply neglecting necessary duties, but rather approaching each task with deliberate choice. Even mundane responsibilities gain significance when performed with awareness and intention, because each is a reflection of discipline and alignment with self-defined purpose. Intentional living also extends to relationships. Connections flourish when interactions are purposeful rather than reactive. Whether with family, colleagues, or friends, approaching communication and collaboration with clarity of intention builds trust, respect, and influence. By being present and conscious in exchanges, you elevate the energy of your environment and reinforce your own sense of responsibility and agency. Relationships then become sources of mutual growth rather than drains on attention and emotion. Habits are the bridge between intention and manifestation. Intentional living cannot rely solely on willpower. It must be embedded in routine. Morning rituals, planning practices, and consistent self-assessment create scaffolding for purpose to express itself naturally. Each repeated conscious act strengthens the neural pathways associated with discipline, focus, and clarity. Over time, intentional behavior becomes automatic in alignment with purpose, reducing resistance and creating sustained momentum toward meaningful goals. Purpose also serves as a compass in uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances often shift without warning. When purpose is clear, choices remain anchored even when the path is obscured. Intention acts as the rudder, guiding each decision despite external turbulence. Individuals who operate without purpose are easily swayed by events, opinion, or emotion, while those who live intentionally navigate with precision. Their energy is conserved, their focus sustained, and their confidence unshaken because decisions emerge from internal clarity rather than external pressure. Living with purpose requires courage. It involves saying no to distractions, resisting convenience, and embracing responsibility for one's trajectory. Intentional action often requires sacrifice, patience, and persistence. The person committed to purpose understands that long-term fulfillment outweighs temporary ease. Each deliberate choice reinforces autonomy, proving that life is not something that happens to you, but something you shape through consistent, conscious effort. Mindful reflection enhances the integration of purpose into daily life. At the end of each day, reviewing choices, assessing alignment with values, and identifying moments of clarity or deviation strengthens self-awareness. This reflective practice turns experience into insight and reinforces the internal compass guiding action. By observing patterns, learning from missteps, and celebrating alignment, you deepen understanding of what truly matters and refine the application of intention in the following ways. Intention also fosters inner calm. When actions are deliberate, the mind does not oscillate between uncertainty and regret. Purpose directs effort toward meaningful outcomes, reducing wasted energy on trivialities or distractions. This clarity reduces anxiety, strengthens resilience, and enhances the capacity to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Energy is concentrated where it produces results, creating a sense of control, alignment, and confidence in navigating life's complexities. The combination of purpose and intention produces momentum. Each act, however small, contributes to a trajectory aligned with values and long-term objectives. Goals that once seemed distant or overwhelming become achievable because each step is deliberate. The mind, body, and spirit converge on direction rather than wandering aimlessly. Momentum accumulates quietly but inexorably, transforming discipline into progress and effort into meaningful achievement. Living intentionally also encourages adaptability without compromise. Purpose defines the destination. Intention defines the method. Circumstances may shift, obstacles may arise, but the overarching aim remains unchanged. Flexibility in approach does not dilute meaning. It ensures progress despite uncertainty. This balance between steadfast vision and adaptable action is the hallmark of a life lived fully, wisely, and effectively. Ultimately, purpose and intention transform existence from passive survival into active creation. Each thought, choice, and action becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of life, contributing to a coherent and meaningful design. When guided by clarity, energy is concentrated, resilience strengthened, and fulfillment magnified. Life ceases to feel accidental. It becomes a deliberate expression of values, vision, and discipline. By creating purpose and living with intention, each day is infused with significance. Each challenge becomes a teacher, and each action becomes a step toward the realization of the best self possible. The practice is ongoing, not static. Purpose must be revisited, intention recalibrated, and awareness continuously nurtured. Growth is an iterative process. Reflection, adjustment, and persistence ensure alignment is maintained even as circumstances change. The cumulative effect is profound. A life lived deliberately, a mind trained to act decisively, and a spirit anchored in meaning. By embracing purpose and intention, every moment becomes an opportunity to build strength, cultivate wisdom, and create a lasting legacy of thoughtful, empowered action.